So FURHHDL and welcome fellow travelers to this wonderful series of teachings on Atisha's Bodhisattva Garland of Gems from Geshe Lhakdor. He really does need no introduction. This is the second of the sessions, but I see several new faces. And I mean, just suffice to say that Geshe La is an iconic teacher, and we have been deeply blessed for more than a decade to have him come and give teachings to us in Delhi under the umbrella of the Foundation for Universal Responsibility in recent years, twice a year. And there are more people who attend than we are able to accommodate. And so thank you, Geshe La, for continuing to create the time for us, and in particular this evening. And I really don't want to stand between the master and the students. And so just a few quick words on housekeeping. And please keep your cursor on the screen, and so that you can view the options at the bottom. We have a chat going on the side, which my co-host colleagues Norzin and Diksha and Seema and Sering will be tracking in case there are any issues or problems. And following the teachings by Geshe La, we will have a Q&A, and for that you need to raise your hand, and you will find the space to do that, and I will detail it further. And you can also type in a question into your chat box. And Geshe La has very kindly agreed to offer personal consultations to those of you who might be interested in speaking to him about your practice and all the teachings. So if you post that on our chat box, your interest in doing so, and your email address, my colleague Norzin, who has switched her camera off for now, she's very shy, will be in touch to follow up and set up this meeting. And Geshe La, it's over to you.
FURHHDL to everybody, whatever is your time. Today we will start this second session with a short meditation on the 4 immeasurable qualities. I'm not going to spend much time, but I'm just giving you a hint so that you are able to do this meditation later on. So this short meditation is on the 4 immeasurable qualities, which are immeasurable compassion, immeasurable loving kindness, immeasurable joy, and immeasurable equanimity. And this is practice is also done in the Tibetan tradition in our regular prayer and practices. I'm sure some Tibetans will understand this, which means basically, may all sentient beings meet with happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be without suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings meet with happiness, which is without suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity. So I will recite these lines slowly, and after each recitation, I will stop for a short time. So during that, you should think about it. So let us start. May all sentient beings meet with happiness and the causes of happiness. Everybody needs happiness, but because we don't care or we don't know the causes of happiness, we don't get enough of it. Especially when we talk about long-lasting happiness, most of us have no idea what are those long-lasting happinesses and what are the causes. So this is meditation on loving kindness. The mind of loving kindness says, may all sentient beings meet with happiness. This is something that we should practice in our daily life. The second meditation is on compassion, immeasurable compassion. May all sentient beings are without suffering and the causes of suffering. Although nobody wants suffering, but again, because of ignorance, lack of understanding, we keep on cultivating the causes of suffering and thereby keep on experiencing suffering. So it is almost like intentionally inviting and suffering and experiencing suffering. And again, when we talk about suffering, there is a lot to study because normally we understand only the grosser level of the suffering and we have no idea about the subtler level of suffering, which are the really forces behind all other manifest sufferings. So it is important to understand those sufferings because the way to get happiness is by removing the sufferings and especially by removing the causes of suffering. The third line is meditation on immeasurable joy. May all sentient beings meet with happiness which is without suffering. Meaning that whenever you see somebody enjoying some kind of happiness and peace, instead of developing jealousy, we should appreciate, rejoice, and say how wonderful they are smiling, how wonderful they are living in harmony, how wonderful they are getting things they want. So this way, develop that immeasurable joy. Ordinarily, we want happiness for ourselves, but when others get it, we are not so interested. And also sometimes we develop, unfortunately, jealousy and competitiveness. In Buddhism, we say all sentient beings are like children. Imagine if your children get happiness, will you be jealous? Without your having to do anything, if your children are able to study well, get a good job, you will be overjoyed. So similarly, when all other sentient beings, through their meager effort, limited resources, when they get something to be happy about, you should also join them and be happy. Now, in order to develop all these immeasurable qualities, which we've already explained, the immeasurable joy, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable loving kindness, there must be the foundation. The foundation is immeasurable equanimity, meaning that normally we are unable to develop all these immeasurable qualities towards all sentient beings because we have this tendency of developing excessive attachment and feeling of closeness to some who are our relatives and friends or people who you like. And we develop disliking and sometimes hatred to those who we call as our enemies or who we don't like. And then there are a third group of sentient beings which are neutral to us. Then we have this tendency to develop indifference and ignore their well-being. So therefore, when your mind is uneven, just like a ground which is uneven, you cannot grow proper crops. One of my Tibetan friends who went to Japan to study farming, he came, when I met him, he said, in Japan, they don't grow crooked turnips. Because I don't have that proper knowledge. I said, what kind of stupid thing you are saying? It is what it grows from the ground. He says, no, whether the turnip is crooked or straight depends upon whether you have prepared the ground properly or not. If you have removed all the obstructions like the stones and broken pieces of glasses and things like that, then it grows straight. When it grows straight, you save a lot of money because you're able to then pack more turnips in the box. So similarly, when our mind is uneven, then to some we have excessive attachment, to some we have disliking. So you cannot develop this feeling of sameness, equality towards all sentient beings. There are many, many other reasons also. I'm just giving you a hint. So therefore, the third meditation is, may all sentient beings be able to abide in equanimity, which is free from feeling of closeness to some and distantness to others. In the Mahayana Buddhist text, we say, if you prepare the ground, the practice of equanimity, then moisten it with loving kindness, then plant the seed of compassion, then the beautiful sapling of bodhicitta will grow. Beautiful, beautiful explanation found in Kamala Shila's stages of meditation. So that is a short meditation. So we need to slowly move by reading the text. Although we are doing this on every Friday, I'm not trying to rush. I will try to explain as much as possible because I didn't see any commentary in English or other languages. So you may have difficulty understanding everything. Of course, you will get some idea just by reading the lines, but to go a little bit deeper, I think we have the advantage of having access to the Tibetan sources. So I will explain at least a little bit so that you are able to go a little bit deeper than the face value that you will get by reading the lines. So the next line is homage to the deities of faith, or deities of devotion, or deities of faith. This just one line is also very important because in the Buddhist tradition, we have this process of paying homage to higher beings like Avalokiteshvara or Buddha and things like that. I have explained the meaning of paying homage earlier when we discussed about paying homage to the lamas. So the process is similar. Now here in this case is the object of paying homage is the deities of devotion. I'm using this word deity because I'm not sure whether I should use God, with the small g, or deities. In Hindi, it's like Devta or Deva Devi, something like that. So deities here refers to not a permanent, deity like a God creator, things like that, but deity here means, a being with higher spiritual realizations like Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and things like that. So paying homage to the deities of devotion. Why we should pay homage to the deities of devotion? Number one, in the ordinary human existence and also in the higher realms of spiritual practice, there are many beings who are much higher than us in terms of their inner qualities like compassion, love, wisdom, realization. So it is nothing but natural that we should look towards them, seek their guidance, and remember them, just like you are remembering His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So it's very, very important. Number one, this is important because what you are going to get is very much dependent upon your mental perspective. And if you're in your mental perspective, if you see the good things, you will always get the good things. If you always see the bad things, you will see the bad things. And your life will be experiencing all those bad things. So therefore, it's important to pay homage to the deities. Now about the deities, there are so many deities. The Tibetan Buddhist tradition also come from India, and it has adopted many of those practices, including the paying homage or practicing Deva Devis, male and female deities. In India, I don't remember the exact number. The number is something like 1 crore deities or something like that. It's a huge number. So it's impossible for us to trace all of them and practice all of them. So therefore, it's very pertinent that this discussion is brought here right in the beginning after paying homage to the Lama. With the Lama also, the paying homage to the Lama is so important, because when you go into the field of spiritual practice, you must know which Lama you should relate to. In other words, which teacher you should seek. Because there are many teachers who are not so qualified, probably like me, and also there are many who are crooked, whose job is like selling dharma, doing dharma business. Unfortunately, we are human beings, so everything is happening. So you need to be careful. I know that there are some people who had family problems and other societal problems. Then in order to find a solution, they go to some dharma centers. And there also, when they meet again a crooked dharma teacher, imagine if the last, source of refuge and hope turns to be negative, they might lose faith in the whole humanity, you see. So it's really, really important to identify a good teacher, good Lama. You don't have to accept anybody as your teacher or as your Lama just by listening to one teaching or few teachings. Just like, you can listen to them just like listening to any lecture. And if you get benefit, of course, it's human, good way of doing things. You can say, thank you, it was very good. Just like somebody getting cup of tea, even for a cup of tea, you say thank you. So it's natural you say thank you, but you don't have to tie your neck with that person saying this is my Lama and then run after that person like a, dog chasing a piece of meat, and then later on you find that complication. It's very important. So use your human brain and common sense and judge. It's very important, very, very important. And especially, in the beginning when many foreigners came to Tibet and did not have much time to understand the depth of Buddhism, then they started calling the Buddhism in Tibet as Lamaism, as if the Lamas are more important and as if the Tibetan Lamas have fabricated those teachings. No, what the Tibetans are teaching is basically completely, based on the authentic source of the Indian tradition. So therefore, His Holiness, if you read some of his books, he clearly says it's wrong to call the Tibetan Buddhism as Lamaism. Gives the wrong idea. Okay, so let us now talk about this, paying homage to the deities. So as I said, there are countless deities. So we have no time, life is short, and also we don't have all the resources and time and mental caliber to relate to all those deities. And also, I think it is not so important to find the list of all the deities, that's not important at all. In Tibetan, there is also a saying which says the Indian practitioners, they practice one deity and achieve all 100 deities. The Tibetans practice 100 deities and achieve none. So, which may be true, which may not be true, but the point that is made here is if you do one practice with one, deity properly, all these higher beings, their qualities are related to each other, similar, so you are going to achieve much. And not only in the sense of paying homage to the deities, but also in our regular practice, which I am now realizing more and more as you age, you realize these things slowly. And if you read the text like Nagarjuna's precious Garland, Ratnavali, he says, he gives this long instruction, including the secular practices, political practices, religious practices to the king. Then somewhere he says, "O king, you are a very busy man. I don't think you will be able to practice all this. But if you do one practice sincerely, properly, like giving, generosity, your name will shine out. Hundreds and thousands of people will benefit. And you will also be, get that recognition through which you will be, empowered to do other higher practices also, which is true. And then if you go to the Buddha's own teaching where he says, if you have one quality in the palm of your hand, you have all the qualities in the palm of your hand. And what is that quality? Great compassion. Imagine if you're able to do this and develop great compassion, genuinely, not just talking, not just counting how many compassions are there, as I said earlier, but genuinely, if you're able to develop this compassion, thinking how nice if all sentient beings are without suffering. That includes not only human beings, but all sentient beings, including the tiniest helpless insects. Imagine. So all this clearly shows that we are like jack of all trade, master of none. That's the problem. We are not specializing anything. unfortunately. I'm not saying what you are practicing is, useless or misplaced. It's good. It's very good. I'm not trying to discourage you. It's good. But in order to achieve something, you really need to develop these qualities constantly. And once you develop this wish, for example, that all sentient beings are without suffering, imagine all your other negativities towards all sentient beings will automatically stop. How can you bully others thinking that they be without suffering? How can you exploit? How can you cheat? Can you lead a life of duplicity? You see, so that's important. That's something that I'm now learning, or at least seeing. So I wanted to tell you that. Do one practice properly. Specialization. It's very, very important. Okay. So, but then still we are like ordinary human beings. We have our own failings. We live in situations, environments with a lot of distraction, obstruction, things like that. So therefore, it's also important to, follow the examples of good spiritual teachers, good spiritual masters, and also pay homage and also practice these deities. And now, therefore, this discussion comes here, where Atisha and Domtamba, they discusses, which since there are so many deities, which deities we should choose. Those of you who have received initiation from His Holiness or other teachers, you also recall that when, in front of the mandala, somebody representing the population who are there receiving the teaching, he will get up and throw something, a flower or something in the mandala. And then whichever direction the flower falls in the mandala, that indicates which deity in that mandala has special karmic connection with you. So that is also important. That's important. And that's why you see in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, very compassionate deities like Avalokiteshvara, and also very wrathful deities like Yamantaka and so forth, bearing fangs, and then also other deities in union with the consort, these are not there to distract you or to provoke negative emotions. But among the followers, practitioners, there's so many people with so many different mental dispositions. Some they feel happy, when they see a compassionate person or compassionate deity, they like to follow it. Others, they feel that I will not be able to tame myself unless I follow a wrathful person, a good, powerful leader, people who like to join army or things like that, they want to practice the wrathful deities. So it has to do with our own different emotions, right? So therefore, here he says, regarding the deity, he says, during this time of degeneration, that is Kali Yuga, as Rajiv has asked, during this time of degeneration, there are many interruptions. Do I need to elaborate on this? No, there's so many elaborations, especially those of you who live in big cities. So many things to do, meaningless, meaningful, so many things to see, meaningless and meaningful, so many things to eat, meaningless, meaningful. I mean, there are countless distractions. And our 5, 6 senses always pay attention to these sensual objects, and they are easily led into the wrong direction, wrong path. So there are a lot of, then of course, people, there are many people, there are many people who don't talk about this spiritual practice. I've seen this in many places in bigger cities. The only thing they are concerned is how to get their food and clothing and other money and things like that. And for that, they are ready to do anything. In Hindi में बोलता है ना, मारो, डकेता करो, you loot people, kill people, whatever, unfortunately, or at least continuously. In telling lie, people have now no hesitation, unfortunately. In ancient times, and still also in some community, even when they tell lie, their face shows they're lying and they feel embarrassed, so people easily notice it. But now in today's world, the cheaters, the liars, they're so good, they're such an expert that you can't, people like you and me, we can't figure that out. So we become easy target, you see, unfortunately, that's the case. So therefore there's a lot of interruptions. Then of course, our own negative emotions. As Vasubandhu in his book, Abhidharma, he says that there are many external distractions, The objects are there. Object of enticement is there. And inside you, you have all the improper and negative emotions are there. So it's really like the fire and fuel present together. So any moment, the spark, the fire will come out. So there are a lot of interruptions. So we need to be careful, use our common sense and not to do everything that is done or not to follow everything that is advertised on the television screen, unfortunately, right? So there are so many interruptions. And he says, regarding the personal deities also, there are not many that will really give you the boon or the attainment. And in fact, there are some which, again, you know, who made the God? Who made these deities? Us, the human beings. Many of them are our own creations, you see. So there may be creations which is called deity, but if you relate to them, instead of giving you any accomplishment or attainment or any boon, they might destroy any good things that you have already. So therefore, Domtamba requests Atisha, please give me some gentleman, kind of noble deities. No? And then this is answered by Atisha by saying that I will give you these 4 deities, which is Buddha and Avalokiteshvara, and in Tibetan we call it Myowa, which is Achala in Sanskrit, Achala, and Tara, green Tara. So I think those of us who follow the Kadampa tradition, I think it's important for you to identify these deities. And His Holiness has been giving these mantras and the practices of these deities when he was really visiting Mongolia, Russia, those places. He could give those teachings. And so since then, I started reading more about that. And recently I commissioned to make a thanga of the 4 deities, which is not easily available. So I made it. I hope to send a picture of that so you can, the foundation can share it for those people who want to know about that. Okay, so these are the 4 deities. Then there is the discussion why these 4 deities are chosen. Now in the first he explains about the colors of these 4 deities. Buddha is golden color, Avalokiteshvara is snow-like white color, and Achala is dark blue. And this deity is also a protector deity. It is practiced in Japan also. And then green Tara is of course green color. Okay. So then the question is asked by saying that since there are immeasurable, countless host of deities, and in the tantric teaching also, again, there are so many like tantric teachings and so many deities. But that is true, but you need to find out something that has a special close connection to you, meaning that something that has close connection with Domtomba, because this is discussion between Atisha and Domtomba. But we, as being the followers and practitioners of the Kadamba or later on Gelug tradition, which the Kadamba tradition later on more or less merged into the Gelug tradition, which we have right now. So therefore, it's also in that way befitting for us to practice deities also, with which we have more karmic connection. We have more karmic connection because of our karmic connection with Buddha, of course, and our karmic connection with Atisha, and our karmic connection with Domtomba and so forth. Okay, so therefore he says that you need to find out those deities with whom you have the karmic connection. Because it is not easy to cross this ocean of samsara, and the sufferings that we have within the human realm is immense. And it is our responsibility and duty to help protect all our mother sentient beings. So therefore, in order to do that, in order to achieve success in that, we need to have the guidance of a deity which can really protect us. That's also very important. So now with regard to the choice of Buddha Shakyamuni, Buddha here means Buddha Shakyamuni out of the 4 deities, he makes a little bit more elaboration by saying that as far as our object of refuge is concerned, as a Buddhist practitioner, there cannot be a better object of connection than the three objects of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. That's for sure. We all do it. So there's no problem with that. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I hope you all know this. Because to take refuge in something is a unique human kind of behavior. There's nothing peculiar to Buddhism, because human beings have this natural tendency to take refuge in something when they are unable to solve the problem by themselves. And I always say that long ago, a man lived in the cave means they took refuge in the cave to protect themselves from heat and cold and rain and so forth. And at 12 or 1 o'clock, when you are hungry, you take refuge in food, right? So similarly, when we have a problem, we take refuge in someone else to help us, to protect us, to give us the facilities. So from that point of view, here also, when we say we take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, you have a problem. So we need to, in order to properly take refuge to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, you need to find out that problem. What is your problem? So here in this case, we take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, not for business successes, right? Not to stop the coronavirus pandemic. I mean, you can do that, but that is a minor business, a very small business. You take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha because your whole life's existence in the samsara is not perfect. There's a lot of problem like, being the suffering of birth, suffering of aging, suffering of sickness, suffering of death, and then suffering from all the host of negative emotions that we have. There are countless sufferings. Sufferings of not meeting or not getting those which you want, and always getting those which you don't want. The person who you love, who you want to talk, is not available, even on phone. The person who you don't want seems to be standing at the door and waiting for you all the time. Something like that, you see. So we have countless problems. So therefore, we need to identify or develop some kind of uneasiness or fear of this existence under the control of negative emotions. And so our job as a practitioner is to reduce these negative emotions like anger, jealousy, hatred, and so forth. So in order to do that, we need to follow the teaching of the Buddha. So therefore, Buddha becomes important as a teacher. His teaching like a medicine becomes important. And the Sangha community like nurses and the doctors, in our ordinary life also, when we are sick, we need a doctor. So Buddha is like a doctor. If you have just doctor and no nurse and no medicine, or nobody looking after you, the doctor cannot do much. So doctor is very important. A skilled, learned doctor is very important, but that's not enough. You also need the medicine which cures your illness. Now imagine you are not only sick, but very, very sick, bedridden. Then in that case, just a doctor and medicine is not enough. You need somebody, nurse or your brother, sister, or somebody to look after you, right? Who will support you. So you need these three. When you are physically very, very sick, you need a doctor, you need medicine, you need somebody to look after you. So similarly, in Buddhism, we say we are mentally sick, unfortunately, sick of negative emotions. What do you mean by being sick? Being sick means when you're not happy, mentally not happy, mentally experiencing unpleasantness, mentally feeling disturbed, that is sick. That is sickness. So imagine when you get angry, you get sick. These are diseases, terrible diseases, much worse than the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19, if we wait another maximum 6-7 months, hopefully something will come up. It looks like, right? But how are you going to remove these negative emotions from you? There's no vaccine. Unless you personally make effort, unless the world community makes effort, especially the sickness that is there in the so-called leaders of the world, if they don't remove, not only they suffer, how much suffering they are creating to the rest of the mankind, rest of the humanity. So in Buddhist texts, there are so many teachings which uses the word nayam, which means pandemic. So these negative emotions are pandemics, worse than the COVID-19 or any other external diseases, right? And all these pandemics or negative thoughts or emotions come because of this human brain or human intelligence, which has the capacity to think about so many things, to develop so many kind of thoughts and just, and then become so sensitive, Then because of this sensitive mind and having the capacity to understand so many things and not being able to control yourself, your mind then is tossed around like a small piece of cotton with a slight blow of the wind, as is said in the sutra by the Buddha. He says, don't make your mind like a small piece of feather or a cotton, which is blown around by the blow of wind, right? So it's really, really important, really, really important. That just this morning I was thinking, why my house, the top, it's tinned roof, the roof is tin, not concrete. So almost every day, and especially in winter, when the monkeys up in the mountain, they have nothing much to eat. They all come down, jumping on my roof, which is made of, tin, as I said. So like 10s and 20s and, groups come, they are so big and heavy, I have to tolerate and practice my patience all the time. So I was thinking, these monkeys, they never talk about the suffering caused by this pandemic, the COVID-19. The birds are not worried about COVID-19. Dogs are not worried about COVID-19, right? Right. It looks like, there's many of these horrible pandemics, and especially suffered by human beings. One, because of our own wrongdoing, because of our own, fragility, sensitivity. As in the beginning, Raju mentioned that it's very difficult to, find out what are the authentic sources, which is true, So much of, what we are experiencing is also due to fear, not being able to make your own personal decision, not being able to understand the things, that's the problem, right? So therefore, the only way to rectify this negative kind of sensitivity is to use mind itself and to tame the mind, as we say, to develop a right perspective. And if we do that, then of course human beings have much stronger capacity than all other animals. We can really do wonders in this world, which we have done. Many people, like His Holiness or many other people, have done this. You see, so we can do it. We can do it. So therefore, Buddhist, when we say Buddhist practice is important, we are not saying this so that we can increase the population of the Buddhist followers, which have nothing to do with that, the population, right? So what is important is we all want happiness, do not want suffering. So the only way to do it, if genuinely want happiness, genuinely do not want suffering, the only way is to turn inward and find out this host of thoughts, positive thoughts, negative thoughts, positive thoughts, cherish it, strengthen it, nurture it, sustain it. Negative thoughts, deny it, ignore it, gradually remove it. That's the only way. And the interesting thing, it looks like when you read all these texts and when you see some really genuine practice, it looks like when your mind is completely at peace, then none of the turmoils outside can shake you, disturb you. When your mind is not at peace, even if you are surrounded by like so many good facilities and so many good news and so many good friends, still you're unhappy, right? So therefore, it is important to realize that the most important practice in Buddhism is controlling one's mind, which means minimizing the negative emotions, increasing the positive emotions. That's the only way. And therefore, the Kadampa masters, they say that we have only one job. The only one job is to guard whether the negative emotions are coming or not. If the negative emotions are not coming, I can relax. The guard can relax. If the negative emotions are coming, the guard cannot relax. The guard cannot sleep. You need to throw them out, kick them out. So if you do that, wherever you go, in whatever situation you are, you will not feel much disturbed. You will take all the precautions, including the precaution for the, this pandemic. Precaution we have to do. In fact, practice of Buddhism means taking all the precautions of from the negative emotions, then gradually fighting with them, then gradually removing the seeds of negative emotions. So the approach is there, right? So therefore, in the mind training text also it says, if you say that I'm a practitioner of mind training, so no pandemics can harm me, and if you don't put on your mask and don't wash your hand and mix with all the crowd, which especially the containment area, you will get sick. It clearly mentioned in the 7-point mind training, it's a wrong way of life because you are still an ordinary human being. No, you're not invincible from the harms of the viruses, and you need to protect yourself physically, mentally, everything, right? So that is what is being said here. So therefore, taking refuge to Buddha Dharma Sangha is of course very, very important. But out of the three, the most important is Buddha, because it is he who gave the teaching. And he himself is the Sangha. So Sangha refers to somebody who has achieved the path of seeing and who has directly realized emptiness. And Buddha, of course, is such a being. So he is a Buddha, he is a Sangha, and the teachings are what he has taught and what is in him, teaching primarily here. When we say I take refuge in the Dharma, Dharma primarily does not refer to a set of scriptures, but Dharma refers to the state of cessation of negative emotions within yourself, and the paths, like the 3 trainings or the 5 paths or 10 spiritual grounds that leads to the achievement of that state is called Dharma, right? So out of this, here in this case, the most important is Buddha. So therefore, I choose Buddha as one of the deities. That's the reason. And then the reason for choosing Avalokiteshvara is that Avalokiteshvara appeared in this world in the form of a Bodhisattva on the 10th spiritual ground, who really is, in a way, embodiment of all the Buddhas, the Dharmakayas of all the Buddhas of the 3 times. And his compassion extends to everybody. It's like the extent of the space. And his compassion is incomparable, a great compassion, right? And especially for the Tibetans, because this discussion is happening in Tibet, and especially Avalokiteshvara is the special patron deity of Tibet. Just as Manjushri is the patron deity of, in the text it says Manjushri is the patron deity of China. And then Vajrapani is the patron deity of Mongolia, things like that, okay? And the clear indication that Avalokiteshvara is the patron deity or special deity of Tibetan people is that even a child who is only 5 years old is able to recite the 6-syllable mantra Om Mani Padme Hum without any hesitation. There's no need to teach this mantra, as we say. You can just imbibe it, learn it from others. So, and also, if even somebody who is disabled, if they request for a teaching on teaching or transmission of the 6-syllable mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, no Lama would say no. They will easily give their transmission, right? So it's something so important for everybody. And then, of course, meditation on compassion is the most important practice in the whole Mahayana practice. And then, especially when we talk about the 6-syllable mantra, it is, there are books and books explaining the importance of this mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, which in a short way summarizes all the teachings of the Buddha. The word Om is a very popular word both in the Hindu and Tibetan tradition, Tibetan Buddhist tradition. But here in this case, the word Om is a combination of 3 letters, A, O, Ma, which symbolizes body, speech, and mind. And in the end of that 6-syllable letter, you have Hum, which means becoming indivisible. So that means the purpose of the practitioner is to oneself become indivisible with the Buddha or Avalokiteshvara, meaning that the end purpose is that you should yourself become the Buddha. And how would you become that? How would you do that? Through the practice of method and wisdom. You want to become Hum with Om. How would you do that? With Mani and Padme. Mani means gem or precious jewel or precious gem, which symbolizes the compassion, which looks after well-being, skillful compassion, as we say, looks after the countless needs of sentient beings. And Padme means a lotus, which symbolizes the wisdom that cuts the root of ignorance. So it is saying that the way to become Buddha, indivisible with the Buddha, is to undertake this process of doing this combined practice of compassion and wisdom. I sometimes call it, for easier understanding, I call it harmony of head and heart. In ordinary terms also, it's important to develop both the head and the heart. In today's world, unfortunately, there is some kind of development of head by going and studying so many things. Lekin dil nahi hai, heart is not there. Heart is not there. Then the result is, when the heart is not there, when you have only kind of indoctrination and intelligence, then you will not hesitate making a nuclear bomb to destroy and kill many others, so long as you are getting money. That's what is happening today. So therefore, with your education, with your head, you also need the heart. There's feeling for other people, sense of responsibility, loving kindness, compassion, all this is important. So these two must go together. Extremely, extremely important. These two are like the two wings of the bird. Without the two wings, you cannot soar into the space. You cannot fly in the sky. So therefore, compassion is very, very important. Therefore, he has suggested Dongdamba to choose Avalokiteshvara as one of the deity. So I think we stop here today. There's no hurry. We have a lot of time. So I must give you some time for question answer.
Yes.
Okay? Yeah.
So if you have a question, well, thank you, Geshe La. That was such a succinct and intense teaching, and time just flew. And I often think that we should do this for 2 hours every evening, or at least an hour and a half. But we'll take a vote on that later. So if you have a question, please press the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and my colleague Diksha or Norzin will unmute you, and please ask your question. It's over to you.
Thank you. I may be misunderstanding you, but I had a question, a basic question about the importance of in the three jewels, of the importance of the Buddha compared to the Sangha. And perhaps I misunderstood, or it's a distortion of the teaching. It's so long ago that I don't remember where I heard it, but I understood that the Buddha had taught that the Sangha of the three jewels was the most important. The way that we commune with people, who we spend time with, affects us so profoundly. And here you've said that the Buddha is the most important. Is this because I've misunderstood, or somebody else
No. I don't think you misunderstood. I don't think I have misinterpreted. Both of us are correct. But it depends on the context, you see. For a beginner who don't have direct access to the Buddha in his practice, Sangha is very important. I think you might have heard it in that context. Then what I was saying was, in the ultimate sense, the source of all the teachings is Buddha. Sanghas also come from the teaching of the Buddha. Bodhisattvas also come from the teaching of the Buddha. Of course, Buddha also come from the Bodhisattvas. It is both the ways. So in that sense, both are important. But here in this case, what we are saying is, like, we are talking about the three objects of refuge, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So within that, Buddha is important because it's the source of teaching in that sense. Yeah. Okay.
Well, may I ask the question, since we're waiting for someone to... Geshe La, this question that my friend Susan raised about the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, but wasn't it also that the Buddha had said that, look, I am not important, but the teaching is important, and it should be subject to the scrutiny of experience. So in that sense, at different stages, as I think you're pointing out, all three can be equally important, or more or less.
But here in this, you're right. That is also right. And again, I'm also right, hopefully. but you see, here the teaching is given by Atisha, not by Buddha. The Buddha is not saying that I'm great, right? And in fact, Buddha never encouraged personality cult.
Correct.
That's why this Zen Roshi, one Zen Roshi who wrote this book, and he said, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. I mean, not in that sense of violence, but he's saying that Buddha never taught this personality cult. And we have this tendency of not paying much attention to the teaching, but talking about the person. That's our normal tendency, you see. We don't listen to the teaching. We don't practice, but we talk about, oh, that person is this, that, We are fond of following the concrete things. So that is wrong. Yeah, in that sense, I think.
I think someone has an audio problem. We can't hear you. Yes, please go on. Just hold the microphone closer to you, maybe.
No, you listen me?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Yes, okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Geshe. My question is how to develop the belief in power of yourselves, in power beliefs in self-confidence. Because sometimes I think I'm a small people, I have no power, I have no many ability to help people. How?
Yes. True. Good question. Very good question. So first of all, it depends upon what do you mean by power. You're talking about power in sense of becoming a president or a prime minister. Then not everybody can become, a president or prime minister. And because of that, if you say I have no power, then I think that is wrong, and it's not important to become. Not important that everybody become president and prime minister. That doesn't really denote power also. Probably power in the wrong sense in many times. But otherwise, what is important for you to read? This is a very important question. Recently, I was reading, not Buddhist texts, but some other literatures, where it encourages everybody to have confidence in oneself, because whether you are made by God or whether you are made by nature, you are made in such a way that you are completely a different person. There is no second you in this world. And the talent and the capacity in many things that you have, believe me, not many other people have. I have a different talent, different capacity, different power, which you don't have. And you have something else which I don't have. You see, that power, that capacity may be in different field, so what? Right? So it's important to realize and recognize all those things that you have and have confidence in that, number one. Number two, again, in the Buddhist teaching also it says, there is nobody who will catch hold of your hand and throw you into heaven. Even Buddhas and all these deities that we talked about cannot do that. And similarly, there is nobody, however negative and horrible they are, there is nobody who will catch hold of your leg and drag you into hell. So at the end of the day, your happiness and your suffering is in your hand. How much you will suffer, how much you will be happy is very much primarily dependent upon you. Of course, external factors play a role, but primarily it is dependent upon you. And especially if you're somebody who is looking for help and support from other people, then the rule of the game is first you help yourself. Then you have the right to ask for help from others. Many times we don't take care of ourselves, we don't look after ourselves, and then you complain, people are not taking care of me. Right? So the start has to be made from you. That's one way. Then another thing is, my teacher, when I was in the ordinary secular school, my teacher always used to say, that if you are getting kind of developing overconfidence, thinking and becoming arrogant that you are somebody special, then he says, look towards those people who are much more successful, much more higher than you. Then your arrogance will come down. If you think, if you're deflated and discouraged and thinking that, you are nobody, then you should look down upon those people who are much, 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 much worse than you. I'm 100% sure there are many, many people. And I've seen this. There's no problem with that. You go to just big cities, especially in the slum areas, you will see how these people are still laughing and enjoying. They have basically nothing. You see, so this shows, look at the beggar on the street. Many a times you will see these beggars which have nothing. You will very often find them singing and dancing and jumping. And those of us who have a nice place to stay and all the facilities there, still thinking they are and complaining and not so happy and get depressed, And whereas these people who hardly have anything, they are singing, dancing, you see. And that's the nature. But when you lose everything, the only thing is that on which you rely is your internal resources. So there are many ways of instilling confidence if you think like that. Okay.
Well, we have time for one more question.
Yeah.
May I ask now?
Yes, please.
Geshe-la, as far as does Bodhi Path Pradeep come into the Kadampa teachings, or was it a special thing that he made? And secondly, the teaching on the 10 innermost jewels of the Kadampa, does it come within this text?
No, in fact, Bodhi Path Pradeep, in fact, is really almost like the source of all the Kadampa teachings. And that was a teaching that Atisha gave based on the request from the Tibetan king, Changchu Bö. And so that's really the source of Kadampa teachings. And then the 10 qualities that you mentioned, once this Kadampa teaching, especially the mind training, monasticism, and meditation on bodhicitta, these are the core practices of Kadampa teaching, and which influenced all the 4, Tibetan schools of tradition. So this is practiced in like for example, when you talk about this 10 qualities, I think it's from Gambuba's book, or probably Gambuba's precious Garland book. So these are all highly, highly influenced by the Kadampa teachings. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Geshe-la, for another inspiring, illuminating evening. And I think that a very special thank you from our entire virtual Sangha. And we look forward to connecting you with all of us next week at the same time. I should just sort of add that just a reminder that, go to the chat box. Norzin has posted the details of how you can contact her for consultation with Geshe-la, and that we will be sending all of you who have participated in today's session the link for next week's teachings. So thank you very much. Follow His Holiness of His Geshe-la's guidance, and we're all inspired by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, particularly in these extremely challenging times where we're all struggling to really come to terms with the true nature of reality, which is what Geshe-la was really pointing to, and to approach it with compassion and wisdom. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Geshe-la, again, and see you next week at the same time. Thank you.